gonna win. Garnett on the slam. Oh, using Curry way downtown. Oh, what a shot from Curry.
The Basketball Hall of Fame needs a makeover, and I'm pretty sure it's really not a secret to anybody. One of the main problems with it is that it's called the Basketball Hall of Fame, meaning the bar for an NBA player to make it is automatically lower. For instance, if they had a dominant college or international career but only a decent NBA career, they're going to make it into the Hall of Fame just like a superstar who led his team to multiple championships. It's going to be on different ballots, but they're still both going to make it. Because of that, a lot of players have a case to eventually be in the Hall of Fame, and today I wanted to point out 2 players you think aren't going to be there even though their career resumes say otherwise. What's up NBA fans, Dom2K on the mic, and I really tried to add more players to this list, but when I was looking at the Hall of Fame probabilities, I saw a lot of players that the public pretty much knows are going to be inducted without a question, so I wanted to stay away from the no-brainers. I also thought about discussing Derrick Rose, but A, his Hall of Fame status has been debated so much that there's no reason for me to cover it, and B, at the moment we just kinda have to play the weight game and see if he can stay healthy and if he can build on what he's already done, because with the MVP he has a chance, but the main thing is seeing if he can even stay on the court for a full season, so we just don't know with him right now. However, the 2 players I picked for this video are extremely controversial with their cases. One player has an amazing case to be inducted and should be a no-brainer in my opinion, but his public image has caused a lot of hate and bias that puts his status into question. And the last player is one a lot of you probably haven't even thought about, and you'll seriously question by the end of this video whether he could make it or not, so I'll save him for last. And without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. First, I'll be discussing the polarizing blast from the past, Dwight Howard. Yeah, he still plays, but he's so much less than what he once was 5 years ago that I think blast from the past is appropriate. If for whatever reason you didn't know, Dwight Howard was once the NBA's most dominant center and it wasn't even a debate. Around his era of dominance, the other centers that were often mentioned were Andrew Bynum when he was actually healthy and Brook Lopez. Every now and then you would find somebody that could argue with a straight face that one of them was better than Dwight, but if you were truly paying attention, there wasn't a chance in hell. Drafted in 2004 with the first overall pick, Howard came into the league averaging a very modest 12 points and 10 rebounds on 52% field goal shooting. Just 3 seasons later in the 07-08 season, he had upped all of those averages to around 21 points, 14 rebounds, 2 blocks while shooting around 60% from the field. From this season to the 2012 season, you find very little variation in his averages as he was consistently one of the most dominant forces in the league and one of the most intimidating defensive forces in the paint. Aside from peaking at 3 blocks a game during his stretch, what was most impressive was how he controlled the paint on both the offense and defensive ends. On offense, nobody could really deal with him when he got the ball down low, hence how he had his field goal percentage around 60% while taking around 12 shots a game throughout those years. And unfortunately on defense, there's really no stat that shows how many shots he changed and how many game plans he changed on the count that nobody really wanted to test him at the rim. The major testament to that factor is that he won 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards in a row from 2009 to 2011, and if for some reason that fact doesn't impress you, consider that he's the only player in the league history to win that award 3 times consecutively. Not even greats such as Hakeem Olajuwon accomplished that. So with such a dominant force down low, the Orlando Magic were of course able to build a contender around him. They used the model of having a dominant center down low with 3-point snipers surrounding him everywhere you look so you couldn't focus too much on him, and that's a big reason they were able to beat Cleveland and advance to the finals in 2009. Unfortunately for Dwight, that's the only finals he ever saw, and it doesn't look good that the injured Celtics team he beat to get there came back the very next year to knock his squad off once they had Kevin Garnett back. So for Howard's time in Orlando, he was a top player in the league for 5 straight seasons, he had over 1,500 points and 1,000 rebounds for 4 consecutive seasons, picked up 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, and led the Orlando Magic to a finals. At the time, if you were watching him, there wasn't a question of if he'd be a Hall of Famer, but it was just kind of expected. But since then, his career has been bogged down with character questions, a sharp reduction in production, and injuries. It's important that you remember he was injured because that's the part where I feel people aren't quite fair to Howard. In the lockout season, there were rumblings that he wanted out, there was multiple trade rumors, and it was just a big mess with him signing an extension only later to not even show up to his own camp in Orlando because he wanted to be traded. At the same time, he missed the rest of the 2012 season with back surgery, and to be honest, anybody who's watched Dwight can tell you he's never been physically the same since that surgery. He rushed back from that surgery to be a part of the Lakers super team, only to be a part of one of the most notorious super team failures in history, while also struggling through a torn labrum and multiple acquisitions that he was feuding with Kobe Bryant. That right there may have been one of the most damaging things that happened to Howard, because once Kobe called him soft, pretty much the entire Laker nation followed suit, as well as anybody who was just a Kobe Bryant fan. But if we're being real, he didn't exactly give anybody a reason to refute that on the court. While he was solid in his Houston years while continuing to make all-star teams, he just seemed to be missing that it factor that made him a superstar in Orlando. He didn't strike the same fear in the opponents on both ends of the floor, and his numbers declined every single year until we've reached our current point where he averages 14 points, 13 rebounds, 2 blocks, shoots 63% from the field, and apparently gets sat in playoff games. Now, I'm hoping that you picked up on it as I was saying it. While it's true Dwight Howard hasn't been on an all-star team since 2015, there is no world in which you can say his averages have been bad. For most centers in the league, his stat line from his lone season in Atlanta would be amazing. He's still a pretty good defensive player, and even now where he's become the butt of so many jokes, Howard has never averaged below a double-double in his entire career. Now, am I trying to convince you that he didn't fall off? Of course not. I live in Orlando and I experienced his dominance firsthand, and he's nowhere near the force that he was here. So yes, he fell off when you compare his stats now to what he did here, but why do people act like he's still not a quality player in the league? Would you not take a center who averages 14 points and 13 rebounds on 60% field goal shooting with some good defense? I know I would. And to me, that's why just as Basketball Reference suggesting their Hall of Fame probability, Dwight Howard is going to be inducted without a doubt. To me, Howard has fallen victim to the social media era where it's popular to bandwagon on trendy opinions instead of actually looking at what's going on. Kareem basically called him stupid, Kobe called him soft on national TV, which is where the opinion caught fire, and he's declined every year, but he hasn't declined to the point where he's not still a significant player on an NBA team yet, and that's the key. He's only 31 years old right now, he's in a brand new situation with a good point guard and a coach that he's played for, so he's actually got a great chance to stop declining. Not only that, but look at his career numbers. When you consider that he was once the most dominant force in the league, was a consistent 20-12 guy, picked up 3 straight Defensive Player of the Year awards, and what people consider to be a major decline was him averaging numbers better than most centers in the league today, there's not a rat's chance in hell you won't see Dwight's name in the Hall of Fame one day. Hate him as much as you want, but unless he just regresses to the point where he's only useful overseas, he's gonna be there, and there really shouldn't be that much of a debate about it. There's players in the Hall who have accomplished less than he has, right? And now we're on to our final player. Here's a name I think is gonna shock you when I say it, but just listen to the argument before you comment anything. Remember, this is the Basketball Hall of Fame, so Andre Iguodala actually may have a chance to end up there one day. It may sound crazy to you, especially if you only kept up with him from his Warrior days, and if that applies to you, you especially need to listen. There was actually a day when Iguodala was considered the star player of his own team. He was drafted by the Sixers in the year 2004, and by the 06-07 season, he'd already upped his averages to 18 points, 6 assists, and 6 rebounds. He'd mostly made his name for his amazing athleticism, but of course he wasn't winning much because, well, who wins anything in Philly? So from 2006 to 2010, Iggy was able to keep his scoring average close to 20 points per game, although he never got over the hump. And in his last season with the Sixers in 2012, he was a big piece that pushed the Celtics to a 7-game series that almost saw them advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. But I don't want to focus too much on his individual play because that's not the biggest reason he has a case. It goes without saying that his days in Golden State actually have really helped his career, and it's probably about 70% of the reason why he has a case for the Hall at all. Naturally, his averages have gone way down as he plays on a team with multiple scorers and he spent much time coming off the bench, but he's also a regular name that comes up in the 6th Man of the Year debate, and he was able to pick up a Finals MVP in 2015 when he took on the role of irritant to LeBron James. Many people have tried to post LeBron's scoring averages to make it seem as if Iguodala had no effect on him in that series, but then you look at his field goal percentage and the actual numbers from when Iguodala was guarding him, and you realize he was one of the biggest reasons they were able to win that finals after being down 2-1. With that Finals MVP came a championship, and of course last season he won another championship with them. You put that on top of the fact that he's also an Olympic gold medalist, a one-time NBA All-Star, and he's been selected to 2 all-defensive teams, with one of those being a first selection, and you'd be crazy to think that he doesn't at least have a chance to land there. Alone, these accomplishments might not have done it, but the fact that he was a decent star player from his time in Philly combined with these accomplishments means you have to start to consider that he may one day be there, even if it's not going to be first ballot. Another reason he has a chance to be there is because of the things that might happen. When you consider some of the people that are in the Hall of Fame, I think his resume now could possibly slip him in there, but you have to remember that he's currently a part of the best team to ever be assembled on paper, and he signed there through 2020. This is the same team that's probably going to win the next 2 championships, at least if there's no injuries, and that's being modest. So let's just say we're being modest. If you take his Philly numbers, his All-Star appearance, his defensive team selections, his gold medal from 2012, his Finals MVP from 2015, seen, and the fact that he may wind up with at very least 3 NBA titles, you're telling me that resume couldn't get him into the Basketball Hall of Fame? What about the likely scenario that he wins 2 out of the next 3 championships with Golden State to give him a grand total of 4 titles to go with everything else I mentioned? When we think of Hall of Famers, we typically think of superstar players or guys that you would think of when you brought up a certain era. It's very true that Iggy wouldn't fall into either category, but that resume that he's not even done working on yet, in my opinion, will definitely be able to make him a contender for the Hall of Fame when it's all said and done. And that's what I got for you guys today. I'd love to hear your opinion on these 2 players and whether you think they're going to be in the Hall of Fame or not. I know a lot of people can't make an argument against Dwight Howard that doesn't involve their emotions because that's basically all I've seen. Aside from calling him soft, you really can't say anything about what he's done, and when you compare him to other players in the Hall of Fame, there's really no chance that he's not going to be there, but I felt I needed to make that argument because he's not a popular player in the public. But with Iguodala, there's definitely a lot of people who might think he's not going to be there, and there's some people who might be able to see that he could get there, and a fan actually asked me what I thought about it, so that's what sparked the idea for this video. And I'm definitely looking forward to see what you guys have to say, mostly about Iguodala, because I believe that's the strongest one where you can say he's either going to be there or he's not going to be there. So make sure to leave your comment in the comment section, hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on my videos. I'm Dom2K, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.